What a clash this is going to be. Jan Krzysztof Duda, the Polish number 1, takes on the world champion Domaraju Gukesh. The thing that makes this exciting even more than normal is the fact that Gukesh worked with Duda for his world championship match preparation, especially for the shorter time formats in case the game went into tie breaks. In Rapid and Blitz, Duda is well known for his short form play. He's very tricky, very resourceful, and Gukesh had revealed that he had played close to 300 games against Duda in the year leading up to the World Championship match. And now both of them are facing off against each other for the first time after Gukesh has become the world champion. This is so exciting. Gukesh is very calmly adjusting all his pieces. Gukesh has had 3 draws and 1 loss in this tournament, while Duda has had the same score with 3 draws and 1 loss. So they both are eyeing for that first win in this tournament, and we have a guest who's going to come and make the first move on Gukesh's board, which will be, oh, that's Zurab Azmai Parashvili there. He is a grandmaster and also president of the European Chess Union. And Gukesh puts his pawn back. We are ready to go now. The game is about to begin. A handshake and off we go. Gukesh, what is his first move going to be? He opens with pawn to d4 against Duda. And Jan Krzysztof plays his pawn to d5. For Gukesh now, he brings his pawn to c4. He's playing the Queen's Gambit. And Pragg had taken the pawn here, but Duda goes for the Queen's Gambit, declined with pawn to e6. The knight comes out to c3, attacking the pawn in the center. Bishop e7 played. And knight comes out to f3. So simple, calm, developing moves here. And black plays his knight out to f6. And Gukesh pushes his bishop to f4. Now the bishop is well placed on this diagonal, and this is the bishop f4 line. Duda castles. It's supposed to be a very, very solid line for black. And here there are many ways to play. One of them is c5, which is the main line. There's also b6, which is played. Let's see what Duda goes for. He goes b6. And when the bishop is going to come here, many times you want to take in the center cd5 and close the bishop's diagonal. Duda pushes his pawn to c5 now. It's a very interesting position that has developed with all 4 pawns looking opposite each other. He takes on c5. And now pawn takes pawn is played. And Gukesh has to decide when he wants to take in the center. He plays his bishop to d3, and clearly pushing here does not make sense, because after take, queen takes, there's bishop at 7, losing the queen. So knight comes out to c6. And will Gukesh now take on d5, or will he simply castle? That is the question here. He simply castles. And this leads to an interesting moment now. Can we push our pawn to d4? It seems like a very possible move. But Duda decides to go bishop a6, hitting the bishop here and also the pawn on c4. We can defend with b3, but Gukesh takes on d5. Now bishop takes bishop. He takes queen takes d3, and you can take back with the pawn now, but then these pawns can become really weak in the center. So he plays knight takes d5, attacking the bishop on f4. Let's see what Gukesh does here. It's an important moment in the game now. He plays knight takes d5, and you must take back with the queen now. Yes, queen takes. And if you take back with the queen, I think black is pretty happy with this exchanges and can put his rook into the center. So Gukesh goes back to b1, where he defends the a2 pawn. Wow. And Gukesh is essentially telling Duda, hey, you have a weakness now on c5. I'm very happy about it. e5 played, and can we bring the rook into the center of the board? So bishop goes back to g3. And the queen goes back to e6. He pushes his pawn to h4. Wow, this is such an interesting move, because generally we are used to seeing a rook centralizing, but h4 has a very, very cool idea, because he wants to play h5 and h6. This is what modern chess has brought onto the table, h5 on the board, and it puts Duda in a slightly confusing state. Should he go h6 here? Should he go f5? He goes rook f d8, and rook f d8 on the board, and Gukesh also brings his rook. So he is ready to trade, but he has got the pawn all the way up to h5. Now rook takes rook taken. He takes back with the rook. And pawn to e4 played by Duda. He did not go for rook d8, trading another pair of rooks. He goes e4, asks a question to the knight. The knight goes back to d2, attacking the pawn here on e4. And now the rook comes to d8. So there's no chance to take here. That loses a piece. So he goes knight to f1, Gukesh here. I was wondering if Gukesh could play b3 to get his knight here, but there was already a lot of pressure down here. So he had to break the pin here. And now knight to b4, attacking the pawn here on a2. He takes, rook takes d8. Bishop takes on d8. Now a3, just kicking the knight away. No, he goes queen d1. He's attacking the bishop here, and if the queen moves, there's queen g4 coming in. He goes bishop to b6. A knight comes out to d2. And he is giving up this pawn. By the way, taking on a2 is bad because queen g4 and queen is very well placed. So he takes it with the knight. How is Gukesh going to continue? Is he going to simply draw the game after check and this is kind of even? No, he decides to continue playing. He pushes his pawn to h6. And this really creates a lot of pressure. G takes h6. Duda is like, I don't want this pawn, because if g6, there was take, and queen d7 with a mating attack. So gh6, queen jumps into h5, looking at weaknesses here and here. You go f5 now. Knight jumps to c4. Wow, what a move. Because if you take here, there is queen e8, king g7 and bishop e5 mate. So that's the reason why queen f7 was played, offering a trade. You can't trade the queens. You are 2 pawns down here. Takes queen h6. Very interesting move by Gukesh. He's actually giving up an entire piece now and Duda takes it. Queen takes check now for Gukesh. 29th move. Gukesh has 11 minutes. Duda has 14 minutes on the clock. If king h8, there is bishop e5 mate. If king f7, you just take the pawn. Queen takes f5. If king e7, there's bishop h4. Not so sure where to go. You can go back. Maybe it's a perpetual. But he goes king e7. Duda is like, show me the compensation, Gukesh. I am a piece up here. Gukesh chops off the pawn on h7, gives a check. And king goes back to d8. Bishop jumps in with a check now. The king is escaping here. King c8. But now queen f5 check, king b7 and g4. In this way, it's a very interesting position, but Gukesh goes g4 straight away. That is a big mistake because queen e6 now stops queen f5 and black is close to winning here. So Duda actually very much better after Gukesh's last move g4. Gukesh had to bring his queen, play g4, g5, g6. It would have been so exciting. It could have been all three results possible. Queen e6 found here by Duda. And now Gukesh is in huge trouble. He pushes his pawn to g5 and he's not leaving it. He presses the clock. Check on g4. It seems like Gukesh has missed something. His position is almost lost here. But he goes bg3. And he's giving up this pawn on g5. There's no mate here. Nothing. Duda takes back the pawn. He's now complete piece up. If you see, there are 3 pawns. 3 pawns, bishop, bishop, queen, queen. But this knight is additional. So he goes queen h3 check. And I guess the point is if you go king b7, there is queen d7. If you go here, I have queen a4 check. So very interesting. King d8, he has to run out. And now queen h8 check. King d7 played. He brings his queen back to h3. And Duda goes back to d8. And there's going to be another check. Can Duda get out of the checks here? As we move on to move number 39. King d7. Queen h3. I believe Gukesh has already repeated the position thrice. Because if you see, this is the first time, but the king was on c8. Now on d7 and here on d7. So he goes king e7 and now another check. King f6. Queen h8 check. And now maybe just he goes king e6. He's still winning, but how to get out of the checks? He has to be a little careful here. And maybe he might lose the e4 pawn, which he has to be ready for. Queen c8. And now king e7. But he goes king f7 and this is a mistake. Because king e7, the way in which this could have continued was like this, and black is successful in getting out of the checks. But king f7 now means that the checks continue. He's going to go queen d7 check. Yes, he finds queen d7 check. Queen comes back to e7, and now there's going to be queen f5 check. Queen f6. Check. He goes back. Check. Queen up. And we are repeating it for the third time. Another check. And Duda is now not really going in for some chances here. You know, he can still play on maybe king g6, queen g4, king h6, bishop f4, king h7, and try to play this position because there are no more checks perhaps. Okay, you could give one more check, but I mean at the end of it I can block it. But somehow he's just here queen e7, and Gukesh calls the arbiter. I think even Duda doesn't want to risk it, although he could play on without too much of risk. Gukesh is like, I'm going to give check here, and the arbiter makes that move, queen f5, and a draw is agreed here. Threefold repetition. What an interesting battle there. Duda and Gukesh have agreed to a draw there. Big fight, and in fact Gukesh was on the brink of losing, and here Gukesh instantly says, like, you know, you can continue maybe. And if you look at Duda's expression, he's like, yeah, it was too confusing with so many checks. He was not sure. And yeah, it's true, actually it was not at all easy to win, but maybe it was not at all easy for Gukesh to defend as well. With this, both the players now have 4 draws and 1 loss. So they are 1 point behind the leader of the tournament, that is Prague, Caruana, and MVL. But yeah, it was a beautifully exciting game between both these players, both fighters. And Gukesh, this idea with h4, h5, h6 really set the board on fire. But in the end, Duda was really up to the task. He put a lot of pressure, even got a winning chance. And in the end, both end with a smile on their face.